What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I'm going to be sharing how to dominate war in Operation Breakout. Now Operation Breakout is the only war map that we currently have access to in the beta build of the game. There will be more maps coming down the road, but this is the one I wanted to focus on so you guys that are either on Xbox or those of you guys that didn't get to really participate in the first beta weekend of this game can really get into this war game mode with a better understanding of how to win. Keep in mind, almost all of these tips should apply perfectly well to the final build of the game, so if you are watching this later on, at least most of these tips will still apply. So I want to tackle these tips in stages. As you go throughout the game, there are different stages, and each one of those stages requires a different strategy. They have different power positions that you want to take care of, and also different tactics that are going to be successful. The first stage here, you have to take control of this room if you're the attackers, and obviously defend the room if you're a defender. On the defending side, the first tip that I have here is a lot of people don't realize you spawn significantly sooner than the attackers, which gives you time to set up your defenses, and it gives you time to push all the way up to their spawn line. Now you don't want to cross their spawn line because then you'll show up on the radar, but if you push right up to the spawn line and aim into their spawn where they're going to be coming from, you can often pick off a couple really easy kills right off the bat because they oftentimes don't expect you to be right up at their front line. And what this does is it buys your team time. If you're an aggressive player, if you're confident in gunfights, always push right up to that front line and try to pick off as many people as possible before you go down. Like I said, they don't normally expect this, so normally you'll pick off a few really easy, basically free kills on people that are caught sprinting. And every kill that you get at this stage is going to buy your team time later on in this stage. Another really important thing on defense is you definitely want to be building this wall. This is the easiest way for the enemies to break in because all they have to do is get into this little side room to start contesting and capturing that room. So you want to try to keep that wall built up and you really want to defend that room. Now on the attacking side, we've got the reverse of that. Realize that you spawn later and that they can potentially be right up to your front line of your spawn and ready to shoot you. So approach that carefully. Look out for those people that are going to try to pick you off coming off of spawn. And if you can pick them off, it's going to be a big win for your team because it's going to allow your team to get that initial map control a lot faster. Now, when you actually approach the room, like I was saying, you do want to destroy that wall and take control of that side room because that side room is going to be very important. You don't have to challenge the enemies necessarily there. You're forcing the enemies to come around the corner to challenge you once you get control of that room. And if you have teammates that are going for the objective and going into the room, the best place to be positioned is right here. Now, it's not directly on the objective, and that's fine. You don't need to have the entire team on the objective itself. This right here is a power position that allows you to shut down this entire main room of this capture area. As a result, if you have teammates that are in the side room over to your right, with this position, you can make it so that the enemies can't challenge your teammates at all because you'll kill them long before they can get around that corner. You have the power position here, you have excellent cover, and you're very difficult to take out of this position. On the flip side of that, if you're on defense and there is an enemy set up on that position, stop trying to challenge him head on and flank him. Always try to flank on the right side. You gotta take him out of that position because he is controlling the entire objective from there. So that's the first stage, pretty straightforward. It's definitely dominated by like SMGs, shotguns, and a lot of grenades, whether that be lethal or tactical grenades. They're very important in this room. Let's move on now to the bridge section. And the bridge section is notorious for snipers. So be ready for snipers. If you are confident sniping, then definitely counter snipe the other snipers, whether you're on attacking side or defending side. It's very important to be sniping. And let's focus first on the attacking side. On the attacking side, smoke grenades are your friend. If you're playing in a team setting, everybody should be running smoke grenade at this point. And you just want to keep smoking the area where you build that bridge and just keep powering through and building the bridge. This is one of those times where it's going to be a little bit brute force. You just have to keep going with it. If you know at this point you can get just a little bit of progress made on that bridge, even though you know you're going to get killed, do it. Build that bridge, make sure you have some cover with smoke grenades, and also having some counter sniping definitely helps a lot here, because if they really lock it down with sniper rifles, it can be quite difficult, even with smoke grenades. Now, one extra tip here that I find to be extremely helpful is if you already have smoke grenades right on the objective point itself, the snipers that are set up on this power position on the main street, or there's actually a couple little power positions there, the snipers that are there can still often see your name tag with lookout, and therefore they can guess where you are and pick you off through the smoke. This is why if you've already got a smoke grenade on the objective itself, toss a smoke grenade across the bridge onto the street. If you do this, the people that are set up towards the hood of the truck, which is one of the most powerful positions on defense, they will be completely shut down for the duration of that smoke because they will no longer be able to see your name tags through the smoke, and it would be a complete guessing game at that point as far as trying to hit you. So one well-placed smoke grenade on the street across the bridge can shut down anybody that's not in the windows. You still have to be aware of the people up in the windows, but at least it shuts those middle street people down. On the flip side of this, when you're defending the bridge, again, sniping is going to be your friend. I find sniping is much better than anything else because if you get a guy building a bridge, he's often going to be prone and there's not much of a target to shoot at. And when you think about the recoil of a lot of even the assault rifles and LMGs, you might hit your first or second shot, but that recoil kind of takes you up, and it takes you a little bit too long to pick those guys off. Whereas with a sniper rifle, one very well placed shot just instantly takes him out of the fight. In addition to this, I would highly recommend sticky grenades. I really like sticky grenades on the bridge because they don't roll away from you. They don't roll off the bridge or anything if you're slightly off. You don't have to cook them. You just throw them, make them land just behind the objective point, and anybody that's playing the objective is going to get taken off of there unless they're running the equivalent of flak jacket. So the strategy that I like to use is counter snipe as much as possible on the bridge. Once they get a ton of smoke grenades on there to the point where you can't counter snipe effectively, that's where you use your sticky grenade to take anybody off of that objective. And that's pretty much it for the bridge section of this. One other little tip that I wanted to give, I thought I'd just throw it in at the bridge section here, is if the enemy does finish building the bridge and you're on defense, you have to retreat to your zone. Personally, I would recommend just sticking around and fighting it out until you die. Usually during this stage, once they finish building the bridge, the enemies will rush straight forward without really thinking they're going to run into much resistance, so you can often pick off 2 to 3 pretty easy kills before going down. And it's okay if you go down if you take 2 to 3 enemies with you, because what you're doing is you're forcing them to go onto a respawn, and therefore you're delaying their initial advance towards you, whereas when you die, you spawn pretty much right by where your objective is anyways, and you'll be back in the fight ready to defend pretty quickly. So now we move on to the bomb section, and the bomb section kind of revolves around the walls. What you want to be doing on defense is build all of the front walls as well as the side walls to set up your defenses. Never build the back walls on defense. I've had teammates do this and it just screws the entire team over because it doesn't allow you guys to get into the objective to defend it properly, and it's not like the enemies are going to be able to really effectively flank around there to get into the objective in the first place. So on defense, never ever build the back walls. It's useless. Now, one tip that I do have for you guys when it comes to building these walls is oftentimes building a half wall can be very effective. Half walls can be used as half cover and you can shoot over top of them, so you're exposing less of yourself, and they're really easy to jump over as well. You can easily mantle over them. So if you are going to be building a back wall, just build it up halfway. This way you can use them as cover. If you want to get into the objective though, you can easily just mantle over them really quickly, and that can be effective in some situations. It's not always ideal, but sometimes it's kind of nice to have a half wall ready to go. Another tip with these walls, especially on the front walls, when you get them built, you can kind of camp on the other side of those walls with an assault rifle or an LMG with FMJ, and if you listen really carefully, you'll be able to hear when an enemy starts planting the explosives on the wall to blow it up. And when you hear this, you can spray through the wall and pick that guy off. He's going to be helpless, he can't really move while he's planting that bomb. I actually figured this out when it was used against me. I was trying to plant the bombs on the walls, and I just couldn't get it done because these guys were spraying through these walls so effectively and taking me out. So what I was having to do was nade these guys before going to plant the explosive on the walls. It was a very effective strategy on defense, so I'd recommend trying it out. Also, another tip with the explosives on these walls, if you are attacking or you just want to destroy any wall at any point throughout war, as soon as you plant the explosive, there's going to be a timer that has to count down. You can hear it ticking until it explodes. You don't have to wait for this timer. Once you get the explosive planted, back off and shoot the explosive. It blows up immediately, and you get through that wall a lot faster than you would if you were just waiting for it to explode. Aside from that, there's not too much else to say about this, aside from the fact that SMGs and assault rifles tend to dominate within this area, and you just kind of keep pushing for that, try to plant that bomb, or try to defend that bomb if you're on defense, and just fight it out in that small area. This brings us to the next stage, and this is where the attackers have to escort the tank all the way to the end of the map. Now this happens in 3 different sections, so as they get through the sections, it kind of acts as like a checkpoint where you can't back the tank off the other way if you're on the defensive side. And right here, as an attacker, one of the keys is if you can safely get on top of the turret on the tank, This thing never overheats in its current state, it has pretty much no recoil, and you never have to reload it. So what this means is when you get up on top of that tank, if you are going to be on the turret, always pre-fire corners. There are only a few really common areas where enemies can come from and come through. If you're pre-firing them, they don't stand a chance of coming around that corner and picking you off. They'll be dead instantly, so you can completely lock down a lane by doing that. Keep in mind though, you are going to be quite vulnerable up here, but it's still worth it in my mind to hop up on top of this tank and pre-fire. On the reverse of that, if you're on defense, of course, be aware of the guys that are going to be hopping up on that tank. Don't walk into the areas where they're very clearly pre-firing, because you're just going to waste your time by having to come on the respawn again. Try to get an angle on that guy and always be ready to pick him off. Even if there isn't somebody currently on there, always be expecting that at any moment somebody's going to pop up into that turret. The first two stages of advancing this tank is pretty straightforward. On both sides, you're either going to want to defend as hard as you can or attack as hard as you can. And there's not too much to say here. It's all about just winning your gunfights and gaining that map control. But the last section, and this is the last section of the entire map, where you get up to that one wall and you have to escort it from the wall to the end, this is a huge clash zone, and this is where things tend to get pretty intense. On the offensive side, make sure you're taking advantage of this wall. And on the wall, there's that broken piece where you can look over in towards the enemy spawn. This is a very important position to be in, but just keep in mind, everybody knows about this position now, so don't overstay your welcome there. Try to pick off a couple kills whenever you can, but don't just sit there with your head exposed. In addition to this, on the attacking side, smoke grenades are definitely going to be your friend in this situation. You want to be throwing smokes up either right in front of the tank or right on the tank and just get in there. And again, this is going to be kind of one of those brute force methods where you just have to push through, try to win your gunfights, and stay on the tank. On the defensive side, a few great tips that I have for you guys. First off, always be aware of that broken wall area, because there's always going to be snipers or people with assault rifles set up on that position, and they're just easy kills if you're always ready for them. And if you can shut them down constantly, then they're not going to be able to pick off your teammates, and therefore your teammates are going to be able to mount a much more effective defense on the tank. Also, if you're more of an aggressive player, I'd recommend pushing through the left or the trench side. Get as close to that wall as possible, because if you get right up next to that wall, the people that are trying to peek over the wall won't be able to see you at all, and therefore they won't be a threat to you. But from this position, you can really effectively lock down a lot of angles and essentially shut down that wall, so no enemies can get past that wall without going through you first. When you're doing this as well, once you clear off some enemies, don't be afraid to wrap around the wall really quickly and just pick anybody off that is standing on that broken wall area. This just makes for really easy, free kills and forces those enemies to come onto the respawn, and the more that you get your enemies respawning, the longer it's going to take them to get back into the action and effectively escort that tank. Again, during this stage as well, grenades are going to be your friend on defense. You want to constantly be throwing your grenades just past the tank. That way anybody that does push up to try and escort the tank, they're just going to be running into a wall of explosives. They're not going to be able to really go anywhere. And that's pretty much it. At this point, it is going to be a big clash, and it is going to come down to who's winning more gunfights and who is getting themselves pushed up and into position. And with that, we're going to wrap up this episode on how to dominate war for Operation Breakout. I'd like to know in the comment section below, first off, are there any tips that I missed here that you think are great on this particular war map? And second, do you want me to continue this series for each one of the war maps when they come out towards the final build of the game? If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.